This is problem number 2 from section 7.4. It says use a sum or difference formula to find the exact value of the trigonometric function. So again, I want to reiterate that they kind of tell you to use a sum or difference formula. What if you didn't know that you needed to use the sum or difference formula? How could you figure that out? Well, you can figuring out by seeing that there's a denominator of 12. If we look on a unit circle, you're going to see that there are no denominators on our unit circle that are above 6, right? We have denominators of 3, 4, and 6. So if you have a denominator of 12, there's no way for us to evaluate that using the unit circle. We could use a calculator, obviously, to evaluate that. But so what we want to do is we want to split this up into we want to split 5 pi over 12 into essentially two fractions that'll reduce to, we want it to reduce to denominators of 3, 4, or 6. It's actually fairly easy. We look at 12 and we figure out the factors of 12. We know the factors of 12, 6 and 2. We also know 3 and 4 are factors of 12. So those are our main factors of 12, are 6 and 2 and 3 and 4. Now, we've got 3 and 4, and we've got 3, 4, and 6 are all on the unit circle. We know those are denominators on the unit circle. So is there a way we can split up 5 pi so that 5 pi will give us two of these factors? Well, what if I said that sine 5 pi over 12 is really sine of, and I can split this to 3 pi. So let's go 3 pi over 12 plus 2 pi over 12. So I'm using two of the known factors of 12, because when I use two of the known factors of 12, I know that they'll reduce. So 3 pi plus over 12 plus 2 pi over 12 is 5 pi over 12, but I know that 3 pi over 12 and 2 pi over 12, they're going to reduce 12, which is a good thing. So let's go ahead and write that now. That's sine of pi over 4 when you reduce that, plus pi over 6. And guess what? Now we have two known spots on the unit circle, pi over 4, pi over 6. So we can use these sum and difference formulas now. So let's go ahead and use the sum and difference formulas. And obviously we have sine and we have a sum formula. So let's look at the sine sum formula, which is the top one. And we can say that this is sine of pi over 4 cosine pi over 6 plus cosine pi over 4 sine pi over 6. All right, so we're just using that top one right there. Sine pi over 4, cosine pi over 6, cosine pi over 4, sine pi over 6. Now we can get rid of the sum and difference formula and just go back to our unit circle and start evaluating this. Well, we know sine of pi over 4. Sine of pi over 4 is root 2 over 2. Cosine of pi over 6 is root 3 over 2. Plus cosine of pi over 4, well, that's root 2 over 2. Times sine of pi over 6, which sine of pi over 6 is 1/2. So now we're done with the unit circle, and we can actually evaluate this. So this is going to give us root 6 over 4 plus root 2 over 4, which is root 6 plus root 2 over 4. And that's the solution to the problem. So sine of 5 pi over 12 is equal to root 6 plus root 2 over 4. And we used the sum and difference formulas to figure this out.